A small child sat alone on the wooden floor, her tiny chest rising and falling in quick, shallow breaths. Her voice cracked as she whispered into the silence, "I can't breathe anymore." The room carried her words like a secret, heavy and unshakable. Shadows stretched long across the walls, and the ticking of a clock felt louder than usual, pressing on the moment. The front door slammed against the frame, and heavy footsteps echoed down the hallway. A tall figure appeared in the doorway, his coat sliding from one shoulder, his tie loose, his eyes sharp yet weary. He was a man whose name carried weight in boardrooms, a man people called powerful. But inside this house, he was just a father. "Lily," he said, his voice trembling more than he wanted to admit. "What's going on?" The girl's small hands clutched at her shirt, tears staining her cheeks. She looked up at him, her face pale. "You're never here. I wait every night and I can't breathe anymore without you." The words struck him harder than any business loss ever had. His throat tightened, but pride kept him standing stiff. "That's not fair," he muttered, though his voice carried no strength. "I'm doing all of this for you, for us." Lily shook her head, her messy hair falling into her eyes. "I don't care about big houses or cars or the dinners you talk about. I just want you to sit with me, just once." For a long moment, he didn't move. He stared at the trembling figure of his daughter and realized he had no words that could erase the years of silence between them. The sound of his phone buzzing in his pocket broke the moment, but he didn't reach for it. Instead, he crouched down slowly, his knees cracking as he lowered himself to her level. "I don't know how to fix this," he said softly, his voice carrying cracks of truth. "But I promise I'll try. Just tell me what you need from me." Her lips trembled as if she wanted to speak but couldn't find the words. The silence stretched, heavy and painful, and in it lay the unspoken truth. Promises had been made before, and promises had been broken. Before either of them could say more, the wind outside rattled the window blinds, and Lily flinched. She hugged herself tighter. The father glanced around the dim room, noticing for the first time how bare it felt, like no one had been living here, only surviving. "Did your mom leave the lights off again?" he asked, trying to sound casual. But the girl's silence answered him more clearly than words. Something wasn't right, something deeper than a missed bedtime story or a forgotten dinner. And as the clock ticked louder, he realized this night was only the beginning of a truth he wasn't ready to face. The man sat there on the cold wooden floor longer than he expected, the weight of his daughter's words pressing on him like a stone he couldn't move. He reached out hesitantly, almost afraid she would pull away, but Lily didn't move. She stayed curled, her small hands clutching her sleeves, her eyes refusing to meet his. The silence between them grew so heavy that it felt like another person. Standing in the room, finally he whispered, "I'm here now, I promise." But even to his own ears, the words sounded fragile, uncertain, like glass that could shatter with a single doubt. Lily's head lifted slowly, her swollen eyes glistening in the dim light. "That's what you always say," she murmured, her voice cracking. "You say you'll come back early. You say you'll be here for dinner. You say we'll go to the park on Saturday, but you never do. You just go away again." Her father's lips parted, but he couldn't find an excuse strong enough to cover the emptiness of those broken promises. For years he had measured his worth in dollars and deals, believing that every contract signed, every business expansion, every late night at the office was proof of his love, because it was all for her future. But sitting here now, with her frail voice exposing the truth, he realized none of it mattered. "I wanted to give you everything," he said softly, pressing his hand against his chest as if steadying his own heartbeat. "But maybe I forgot. The one thing you actually needed." Lily turned her face away, her cheek pressed against her knee. "I don't need everything," she whispered. I just need you." Those 4 words cut deeper than anything he'd ever faced in boardrooms, deeper than any rival's betrayal. They replayed in his head, echoing until his chest ached. The house creaked as the wind pushed harder against the windows, and somewhere in the kitchen, a faucet dripped rhythmically. The millionaire father looked around at the silence, the darkness, the bare walls. Something about the emptiness of the place gnawed at him. He had bought this house to prove something, to himself, to his colleagues, to the world. But it didn't feel like a home. It felt like a stage where he played the role of a provider, never a father. "Where's your mom?" he asked after a long pause, his voice barely louder than the ticking clock. Lily didn't answer right away. She bit her lip, her shoulders stiff. She's gone." The word "gone" carried so many meanings that his heart skipped a beat. He leaned closer, his tone urgent now. "Gone where? Did she leave the house? Did she—" Lily's tiny voice interrupted, sharp but trembling. "She's gone for good." His stomach twisted. He felt the air leave his lungs as if someone had struck him. "What do you mean? When? Why didn't you—" "She left yesterday," Lily blurted, her hands tightening into fists. "She packed a bag. She said she was tired of waiting for you to change, and she walked out. She didn't even look back." The man froze. The room suddenly felt colder, as if the shadows were closing in on him. His wife, his partner, the woman who had stood by him through the building of his empire, had finally done what he always believed she would never do. She had walked away, and she hadn't even said goodbye to him, only to their daughter. Lily's breathing grew uneven, her little body shivering. "She told me to be strong. She said you'd come home eventually, but I don't want to be strong anymore. I just want my family." Her voice cracked, and a sob tore from her throat. Her father's hand reached out, trembling, and rested gently on her shoulder. "I didn't know," he whispered. "I didn't know she would leave." His chest tightened as guilt bled into him. "I should have seen it coming." Lily finally looked at him, her tear-filled eyes searching. His face for something: truth, love, reassurance. "So what happens now?" He didn't answer right away because, for the first time in his life, he didn't know. He had always had a plan, a strategy, a way out. But now he was staring at the wreckage of his own choices, and there was no clear path forward. The buzzing in his pocket grew louder in the silence. His phone flashed with another call, another deal waiting. But for the first time in years, he let it ring. He let it die. "Now," he said slowly, as if choosing each word carefully. "I stay." Lily blinked, unsure whether to believe him. "For how long?" "As long as you need," he whispered. The words carried weight, but beneath them lay the tension of uncertainty. Could a man so used to leaving suddenly learn to stay? Could promises long broken ever be trusted again? The silence stretched until Lily's voice broke it once more. "She's not coming back, is she?" He swallowed hard. "I don't know," he admitted, his voice shaking. "But even if she doesn't, I'll be here. I won't let you face this alone." For the first time, her small body leaned against him, fragile and hesitant. His arms wrapped around her, stiff at first, then tightening as if he feared she would disappear too. The warmth of her presence pierced through the layers of cold he had built around himself over the years. Yet, even as he held her, his mind raced. He thought of the long nights away, the fights with his wife, the words he had brushed aside. He thought of the empty chair at the dinner table, the unopened letters his daughter had slipped under his office door. He thought of all the times he had been blind to what mattered, and then came the whisper, soft but sharp against his ear. "Don't lie to me again, Dad. Please." The plea tightened, his grip around her. "I won't," he said, though in his heart he knew that only time could prove whether his words were true. The storm outside grew louder, rattling the windows until one cracked faintly in the corner. He glanced at it, unsettled, as if the house itself was warning him that the foundation of his life was breaking apart. And deep down, he wondered if his daughter's pain was only the beginning of secrets yet to be uncovered. Because something in Lily's trembling voice, something in the way she avoided his eyes when she spoke about her mother, told him that there was more. Something she wasn't ready to say, something he wasn't ready to hear. The storm outside dragged on through, the night howling like an echo of all the words that had been left unsaid in the house. The father sat with Lily pressed against him, her small body finally steadying, but her breathing still shaky. He looked at her fragile face, streaked with tears, and for the first time in his life, he didn't see weakness in it. He saw truth, a truth he had ignored for far too long. He tried to keep his voice steady. "When your mom left, did she say anything else?" Lily bit her lip. Her eyes darted to the floorboards as if the wooden cracks themselves might swallow her secret. She said you were never going to change. She said you only knew how to love your work. The words stabbed him in a place he didn't even know existed. He pressed his palm against his temple, rubbing as if he could erase them, but they stayed, sharper than any deal gone wrong. "She didn't mean that," he muttered, but the words sounded hollow even to himself. Lily looked at him, her face serious. "She did. She told me I should stop waiting for you to come home because waiting hurts more than being alone." He wanted to argue, to defend himself, but the silence in Lily's eyes told him the truth was not up for debate. He had been absent, not just physically but emotionally, spiritually, completely. The room smelled faintly of dust, like no one had cared to open the windows for weeks. He noticed a crumpled drawing on the corner of the table, stick figures holding hands, one smaller than the others. A child's drawing. He picked it up carefully, his fingers smoothing the wrinkles. "Did you draw this?" he asked softly. Lily's cheeks flushed. "A long time ago, before she left, before you started coming home so late." The man studied the picture. The smiling family, the bright sun, the house behind them, a version of life that had never really existed. He felt his chest tighten until it was hard to breathe. "Why didn't you show me this?" he whispered. Lily shrugged. "You wouldn't have looked. You never looked at anything." Her words shattered him more than the storm outside ever could. He placed the drawing back down, his hand trembling, and whispered to himself, "I should have looked. I should have seen." A loud clap of thunder startled them both. The lights flickered, then went out, plunging the house into darkness. Lily gasped, clutching his arm. "It's all right," he whispered quickly, though his voice shook. "It's just the power. I'm here." Her small fingers dug into his sleeve. "Don't let go." "I won't," he promised, gripping her, hand tighter than he ever had before. In the darkness, the ticking clock grew louder as if mocking him. Every tick reminded him of lost dinners, forgotten birthdays, nights spent in hotel rooms instead of here. The storm raged, but beneath its noise came another sound, soft, muffled, coming from the hallway. The father stiffened, his heart racing. "Did you hear that?" he whispered. Lily froze, her head turning toward the sound. Her lips parted, but no words came out. The muffled noise grew clearer, like someone's footsteps or a door creaking open. He stood, pulling Lily behind him, instinctively. "Stay here," he said, but she clung tighter. "No, Dad, don't leave me." Her voice was so desperate that he stopped. He crouched down beside her instead. "Okay, we'll face it together." The hallway stretched before them in darkness, shadows shifting as lightning flashed through the windows. Step by slow step, he guided her forward. The sound grew clearer, not footsteps, but a voice, faint, broken, a woman's voice. "James." His blood ran cold. He knew that voice. He would have recognized it anywhere. "Your mom?" he whispered. His throat dry, Lily's face went pale. She shook her head slowly. "She's not here." But the voice came again, faint and shaky, echoing through the hallway. James, please. The father's knees weakened. Was his mind playing tricks? Was guilt making him hear things that weren't real? He squeezed Lily's hand tighter, whispering, "Stay behind me." They stepped into the hallway and another flash of lightning lit up the walls. There, on the far end, was a shadow, feminine, tall, hair falling across her face. "Mom!" Lily cried out, her voice shaking. The shadow didn't answer. It stood still for a long, painful second, then turned and slipped into the guest room. The father's pulse thundered in his ears. He wanted to run after it, to demand answers, but his body felt paralyzed. His daughter's sobs shook against his arm. "It can't be her," she whispered. "She said she wasn't coming back. She can't be here." But he had seen it. He had heard it. Something in his gut twisted. Maybe it wasn't about whether she left, maybe it was about why. He pulled Lily closer, forcing himself to stay calm. "It's late," he whispered. "You need to rest." But Lily shook her head violently. "No, you can't pretend you didn't see that. She was right there." He knelt down, his hands on her shoulders. "I don't know what we saw, but I promise you this, we'll find out the truth." Lily's tears rolled fresh again. What if the truth is worse than being alone? The father swallowed hard, staring at the closed guest room door. His daughter's question burned inside. Him. He had spent years chasing power and wealth, thinking truth was something simple. Numbers, contracts, signatures. But this truth, about his family, about love, about everything he had ignored, this was the one truth he wasn't sure he could face. Still, deep inside, a resolve formed. He wasn't going to run anymore, not from his daughter, not from his past, not even from the shadow of the woman who had once promised to stand by his side forever. The storm outside quieted slightly, but inside the house, the storm had only just begun. The silence after the shadow disappeared was almost unbearable. The storm outside had quieted to a low hum, raindrops tapping against the glass like fingers on a drum. The father stood in the hallway with his daughter clinging to him, both of them staring at the guest room door, as if it held every answer they were too afraid to ask. Lily's voice was barely more than a whisper. "Do you think she came back?" He looked down at her, his jaw tightening. "I don't know," he admitted, his voice low and rough. "But if she did, why wouldn't she just come out and talk to us?" Lily pressed her face against his side, her small fingers gripping his shirt. "Because maybe she doesn't want you to know." The words stung, because deep down, he feared they were true. His wife hadn't just left. She had left with a heart full of disappointment. Maybe if she returned, it wasn't for him, it was for Lily. He forced himself to move step by step until they stood before the closed door of the guest room. His hand hovered over the doorknob, but he hesitated. His entire life had been about control. Control over deals, control over employees, control over his public image. But in this moment, control slipped through his fingers. "Dad," Lily whispered, tugging his arm. "Don't open it. Please, what if it's not her?" He crouched down so their eyes met, his hands gently cupping her trembling shoulders. "Sweetheart, we can't live in fear of what's behind a door. We have to face it. Together." Lightning lit up the window down the hall, and for a brief second, the reflection of the doorknob gleamed like a warning. He twisted it slowly, the creak echoing through the hallway. The room beyond was dark, shadows stretching across the walls. He stepped in, holding Lily's hand tightly. The air felt heavier here, colder, as though the room had been abandoned. For years, a faint scent lingered, lavender perfume, familiar and haunting. "Mom!" Lily's voice cracked in the silence. No answer. The father scanned the room, his eyes adjusting to the dim light. The bed was neatly made, untouched. A chair sat near the window, its cushions slightly indented, as if someone had just been sitting there. On the nightstand lay a folded piece of paper. He approached it cautiously, his heart thudding louder with every step. He picked it up, his fingers shaking, and slowly unfolded it. The handwriting was unmistakable. It belonged to his wife. His throat tightened as he read aloud, his voice trembling. "James, if you ever come looking for me, don't. I can't keep waiting for a man who doesn't know how to see his own family. Lily deserves more than broken promises. I left because staying hurt too much. Don't chase me. Just be the father she needs, because that's the only way she'll ever forgive you." The words blurred before his eyes. His chest heaved as if the paper itself carried the weight of every mistake he had made. He dropped it on the nightstand, his hand pressing hard against his forehead. She's really gone," he whispered, his voice breaking. Lily picked up the note with trembling hands. She scanned it quickly, her tears falling onto the paper. She didn't even say goodbye to me properly. Her small body shook as sobs racked her frame. He pulled her into his arms, holding her tight, but guilt clawed at him. The note wasn't just a farewell, it was a final judgment. He hadn't only failed as a husband, he had failed as a father. But then something strange caught his eye. In the corner of the note, faintly scribbled, almost hidden, were two words: "For now." His breath caught. "Wait," he said quickly, pulling the paper back from Lily's hands. He pointed to the words. "Look, she wrote for now. That means she didn't mean forever." Lily's eyes widened, hope flickering in her tears. "Do you think she'll come back?" He stared at the scribbled words, his mind racing. Maybe she left a clue. Maybe she wanted us to find this. The thought filled him with both fear and determination. For years, he had buried himself in contracts and deadlines, ignoring every emotional plea around him. But now, for the first time, he felt a different kind of deal forming, a promise not written in ink, but carved into his soul. "I'll find her," he whispered fiercely, more to himself than to Lily. "I'll bring her back, and I'll make this right." But Lily's small voice cut through his determination. "And if she doesn't want to come back?" He froze, the weight of her words pressing down harder than the storm outside. He turned to her slowly, his voice trembling with honesty. "Then I'll still stay, because I can't lose you too." Her lips quivered as she whispered, "Don't say that unless you mean it." "I mean it," he said firmly, gripping her shoulders. "This time, I mean it." The room grew colder, and he realized the window was slightly open, rain dripping. Onto the sill, he walked over, pulling it shut, and noticed muddy footprints leading up to the chair. His heart skipped. Someone had been here, recently. "Dad!" Lily's voice shook. She pointed to the corner. A scarf lay crumpled on the floor. It was her mother's. His pulse quickened. "She was here tonight." Lily bent down, picking up the scarf with shaking hands. "Then why didn't she stay? Why didn't she talk to us?" He didn't answer. He couldn't, because deep inside, he feared the answer. Maybe she had come back only to say a silent goodbye, one last glance before disappearing forever. But the muddy footprints told another story. They led out the window, down into the garden. Someone had been here. Maybe it was her, maybe it wasn't. The unanswered questions piled higher, but one thing became clear. This wasn't over. He turned to Lily, his face pale but determined. "Tomorrow, we're going to look for her. No more waiting, no more silence. We're going to find out the truth." Lily clutched the scarf to her chest, nodding through her tears. "I'll go with you. I don't want to be left alone anymore." And for the first time, the father didn't argue. He just whispered, "We'll do this together." As the rain slowed outside, the house grew eerily quiet again. But inside both of them, storms still raged. Storms of fear, hope, guilt, and unanswered questions. And somewhere out there, whether near or far, the woman they both loved was carrying secrets neither of them were ready to face. The next morning came heavy and grey, the sky still thick with clouds that looked like they had no intention of clearing. The house was quiet except for the faint drip of rain sliding off the gutters. James sat at the kitchen table, his tie loosened, his coffee untouched, staring blankly at the scarf lying in front of him. Lily sat opposite him, her small hands wrapped tightly around a bowl of cereal she hadn't eaten. Her eyes kept shifting between the scarf and her father's face, as though waiting for him to finally make sense of everything. "Dad," she said softly, breaking the silence. "What if she doesn't want us to find her?" James lifted his gaze from the scarf. His face was drawn, sleepless, shadowed by guilt. "Then we'll still look," he said. His voice was calm but edged with determination. "Because people don't leave scarves and notes unless they want to be found. Somewhere in her heart, she's asking for us to come." Lily bit her lip, her eyes searching his for reassurance. "You're sure?" "No," he admitted honestly. "But I can't sit in this house waiting anymore, and neither can you." Her eyes softened and she whispered, "You sound different." He let out a heavy breath. "I feel different." But even as he said the words, doubt gnawed at him. For so long, his life had been lived behind glass walls of office towers, schedules, and bank accounts. He wasn't sure he even knew how to fight for something real anymore. By afternoon, the rain eased into a drizzle. James told Lily to get ready. He went upstairs and pulled an old jacket from the closet, the kind he hadn't worn in years, back when weekends meant parks instead of boardrooms. As he zipped it, his eyes caught on a photo frame half buried under papers, an old family picture of him, his wife, and Lily at the beach. They were smiling, carefree, unaware of the cracks already forming under the surface of their lives. His throat tightened, and he turned the frame down before leaving the room. They started with the garden. The muddy footprints had nearly faded, but James traced them as far as he could, Lily following close behind. The path led to the back gate, which hung slightly open, the lock rusted and broken. He touched the gate, his fingers trembling. "She came through here?" "Or someone else did," Lily whispered, her voice tight with fear. James looked at her. "You think someone else was here?" "She was scared," Lily said suddenly, her eyes flashing with memory. "When she left, she told me she was tired of waiting for you, but she also said she didn't feel safe anymore." James froze. "Safe? What do you mean?" Lily hugged herself. She didn't explain. She just said she needed to go somewhere no one could hurt her. His chest tightened. He had assumed she left because of him, because of his absence, his neglect, his failures as a husband. But what if there was more? What if there was something darker beneath her? Disappearance? He crouched in front of Lily, his eyes serious. "Did she ever tell you if someone was bothering her? Did she ever mention anyone?" Lily shook her head slowly. "Not really. She just... Sometimes she'd get phone calls, and when I came into the room, she'd hang up quick, and she'd say, 'It's nothing, honey, just a wrong number.' But it wasn't. I could tell." James's stomach churned. How had he missed this? How had he been so blind? He had thought his absence was the only wound. But maybe his wife had been carrying a secret pain he never saw, a pain she couldn't even share with him. He stood, his fists clenching at his sides. "We'll start at her sister's place. Maybe she went there." Lily's eyes widened. "You mean Aunt Clara?" "Yes, if she left a clue, Clara might know." The drive across town was heavy with silence. Lily leaned against the window, watching raindrops slide down the glass. James gripped the wheel tighter than necessary, his jaw set. He couldn't shake the image of the shadow in the hallway, the scent of lavender, the scarf. She had been there. He was sure of it. So why leave again? When they pulled into Clara's driveway, Lily hesitated before stepping out. What if she doesn't want to see us? James crouched and looked her in the eyes. "Then we'll respect that, but we'll at least know she's safe." They knocked, and Clara opened the door, surprise flickering in her eyes. "James! Lily!" James wasted no time. "Is she here? Is she with you?" Clara's face fell, her eyes softening. "No, she's not." Lily's shoulders slumped, disappointment washing over her. "But she was," Clara added quietly. James's pulse quickened. "When?" "2 nights ago," Clara said. "She came by late. She looked exhausted, like she hadn't slept in days. She didn't stay long. She just left a bag here and told me not to tell you." James's hands trembled. "What did she say?" Clara's gaze shifted uneasily. "She said she couldn't handle the house anymore. She said she felt like a ghost there, and she told me she needed space." "Space from me," James whispered, his voice breaking. Clara hesitated. "Not just from you, from everything." Lily tugged her aunt's sleeve. "Did she say she was coming back?" Clara's face softened as she knelt to Lily's level. "She kissed your picture before she left. She said, 'Tell my little girl I love her more than anything.' But she didn't want me to give that message yet. She said it would only hurt you more to know she left with love still in her heart." Tears welled in Lily's eyes. "But I already knew that." James swallowed hard, his chest aching. He turned to Clara. "Where did she go after she left?" Clara hesitated, then whispered, "She didn't say exactly, but she asked me about the old lake house, the one her parents used to own, the one you two visited when you were first married." James's breath caught, memories of summers by the lake, laughter echoing through the cabin, nights spent under the stars. It all came rushing back. A place untouched by the weight of money, deadlines, or pride. "She's there," James murmured. "She has to be." But Clara's voice cut through his hope. "If you go after her, James, you need to be ready to hear what she has to say. She's not the same woman who left you years ago, and you're not the same man she married." James met her eyes, guilt heavy in his chest. "I know, but I owe it to Lily, and I owe it to her." As they drove away from Clara's house, Lily clutched the scarf tighter in her hands. "Dad," she said softly, "if we find her, promise me something." He glanced at her. "What?" "Promise you. Won't just talk about what went wrong. Promise you'll listen, really listen." Her words struck him with more force than he expected. He nodded slowly. "I promise." But as they neared the outskirts of town, James couldn't shake the uneasy feeling twisting in his gut. If his wife had gone to the lake house, it wasn't just to hide. It was to bury something she hadn't told either of them, and he feared that when he found her, the truth might tear apart whatever fragile hope still remained. The drive to the lake house stretched longer than James remembered. The winding roads cut through dense patches of trees, their branches bending under the weight of lingering rain. Lily sat in silence, her scarf clutched tightly in her lap, as though it was the only anchor she had left. James gripped the steering wheel with both hands, his knuckles pale, his thoughts spiraling between hope and dread. He told himself over and over that finding her was the only way forward, but the gnawing fear in his chest whispered that the truth waiting at the lake house might be one he wasn't ready to face. The closer they drew, the more memories pressed against him. Summers filled with laughter, his wife's hair catching the sunlight, Lily running barefoot along the shore with sand clinging to her ankles. Those days felt impossibly far now, like they had belonged to someone else entirely. He wondered if his wife had been clinging to those same memories, if she had come here searching for pieces of herself that had gone missing long before she walked out of their home. When they finally reached the narrow gravel road leading to the cabin, the sun had dipped low, painting the clouds in bruised shades of purple and orange. The lake shimmered faintly beyond the trees, its surface restless with the evening wind. The cabin itself sat hunched in silence, weathered by years of neglect, its wooden boards faded and cracked. Yet even in its state of decay, James recognized the familiarity of it. This had been their refuge once, a place where the world couldn't touch them. Now it stood like a stranger keeping secrets. James parked the car a few yards away, his heart pounding in his chest. He turned to Lily, whose wide eyes reflected both fear and anticipation. "Stay close to me," he said quietly. She nodded, her small hand immediately finding his as they stepped out into the damp air. The cabin door was unlocked, swinging slightly with the wind. That single detail sent a chill crawling up James's spine. He pushed it open cautiously, the hinges groaning in protest. Inside, the air was heavy with dust, yet faint traces of lavender lingered, the same scent that had haunted their home. Lily squeezed his hand tighter. The living room was sparse, but not abandoned. A blanket was folded on the couch, a mug sat, half empty on the table, and a book lay face down on the floor, as though someone had been reading before slipping away. James's chest tightened. "She had been here recently." "Dad," Lily whispered, pointing toward the staircase. A soft sound carried from upstairs, faint but distinct, the creak of footsteps. James froze, every muscle tensed. For a moment, he thought of calling out her name, but something inside him warned against it. Instead, he moved slowly toward the stairs, Lily at his side. Halfway up, he stopped. The footsteps had gone silent, replaced by the hush of the wind outside. He swallowed, hard, his voice low. "Stay behind me." When they reached the top, the hallway stretched ahead, dimly lit by the last streaks of daylight filtering through a cracked window. The first door on the right was ajar. James pushed it gently, and the room revealed itself. A bedroom, small, with a bed neatly made, and on the nightstand, a picture frame face down. He picked it up with trembling hands. It was a photo of him and his wife on their wedding day. His throat tightened as he set it back down. Then, a voice broke the silence. "You shouldn't have come." James spun around. His wife stood at the end of the hallway, her frame thinner than he remembered, her eyes shadowed with exhaustion and sorrow. She wore the same scarf they had found at home, only now wrapped tightly around her shoulders. Lily gasped. "Mom!" She ran forward before James could stop her. His wife knelt, wrapping Lily in her arms with a trembling embrace. For a long moment, the world seemed to pause. When she finally lifted her gaze to James, her expression was unreadable. "Why did you bring her here?" James's voice cracked. "Because she needed you. Because we both did." Her jaw tightened. "You don't understand." "Then make me understand," he pleaded. "Please." She looked away, her hands gripping Lily's shoulders protectively. "This house, it's the only place I can breathe, away from everything, away from the shadows that followed me home." James frowned. Shadows. Her eyes flickered back to him, filled with something he couldn't name, fear, maybe, or shame. "You thought it was about you, didn't you? About your long hours, your absence, your mistakes." He swallowed hard. "Wasn't it?" A bitter smile tugged at her lips. "Partly, but there's more. Something I never told you." Lily looked up at her mother, confusion clouding her face. "What do you mean?" Her mother cupped Lily's cheek, her voice breaking. "I didn't leave because I stopped loving you. I left because someone wouldn't let me live in peace, and I was too afraid to tell you." James's blood ran cold. "Someone? Who?" She hesitated, her gaze dropping. "You wouldn't believe me if I told you." "Try me," James pressed, his tone sharp. "After all these years, after leaving us in pieces, the least you can do is tell me the truth." Her hands trembled as she pulled Lily closer. There were calls, letters, someone watching the house. I thought it was harmless at first, just a stranger with nothing better to do. But it got worse. Notes slipped under the door, a shadow outside the window at night. I couldn't sleep, I couldn't eat. And you... She looked at James, pain flashing in her eyes. "You weren't there." I didn't want to scare Lily, so I kept it inside until I couldn't anymore." James staggered back, his mind reeling. "Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you call the police?" "I was ashamed," she whispered, "ashamed that I was weak enough to let someone get inside my head, and I thought maybe it was my punishment for the choices I made." Lily clutched her mother's arm. "Mom, that's not true." Tears filled her eyes as she kissed the top of Lily's head. "I'm so sorry, baby." James stepped closer, his voice trembling with both anger and desperation. "You should have told me. I would have protected you. I would have done something." Her gaze hardened. "Would you? Back then you barely noticed when I was in the same room. You were too busy climbing ladders, shaking hands, making money. I was disappearing in front of you, James, and you didn't even see it." Her words cut deeper than any wound he had ever known. He opened his mouth to argue, to defend himself, but nothing came out. She was right. For a long, heavy silence, the only sound was the wind rattling the cabin's old windows. Finally, Lily whispered, "So what now?" Her mother closed her eyes, her arms tightening around her daughter. "Now I don't know. I came here to hide, but I can't stay forever. And I can't go back to that house, not while the shadows still follow me." James's voice softened. "Then let me help you face them. Let me prove I can be the man you needed all along." Her eyes flicked to his, searching for sincerity. For once, there was no arrogance, no excuses, no defenses, only raw, broken truth. But before she could answer, a sharp knock echoed from the front door downstairs. All three of them froze. Her mother's face went pale. She clutched Lily tighter, her breath quickening. James whispered, "Who's here?" Her voice shook. "It's him. He found me." The knock at the door echoed again, louder this time, rattling the thin wooden frame of the old cabin. All three of them froze in the upstairs hallway. The silence that followed was so heavy it seemed to press against their chests. James's wife clutched Lily against her tightly, her eyes wide and terrified in a way James had never seen before. Her breath came out shaky, almost like she was reliving a nightmare she had tried so hard to bury. "Stay here," James whispered, his voice steady, though his insides churned. He moved slowly toward the stairs, his steps creaking against the old wood. Every sound seemed amplified, the groan of the boards, the tick of the clock on the wall, even the faint whistle of wind, slipping through the cracks. Behind him, Lily reached out, but her mother caught her hand, shaking her head silently. The knock came again, sharp, deliberate. Whoever it was, they weren't planning to leave. James reached the bottom of the stairs, his pulse drumming so loud in his ears he almost couldn't hear anything else. He hesitated by the door, his hand hovering over the knob. Then a voice came through, deep, calm, but unsettling. "I know you're in there. Open the door." James froze. The voice didn't sound like a stranger's. It carried a strange familiarity, though he couldn't quite place it. He glanced up toward the top of the stairs. His wife was pale, shaking her head, mouthing the words, "Don't." But James couldn't stand still any longer. He pulled the door open. On the porch stood a man in his late 40s, tall, wearing a long, dark coat soaked from the rain. His face was sharp, his eyes piercing but oddly calm. He didn't look dangerous in the way James expected. No weapon in hand, no aggression in his posture. Instead, there was something unsettling in the way he simply stood there, as though he belonged to this moment, as though he had been waiting for it for years. "James," the man said, his lips curling, into the faintest hint of a smile. James stiffened. "You know my name?" The man nodded once. "Of course I do. May I come in?" Every instinct in James screamed no, yet before he could answer, his wife's voice trembled from upstairs. "Don't let him in!" The man's eyes flicked upward and his smile deepened. "So, you finally decided to stop running." James's stomach twisted. He turned back toward the stairs. His wife was gripping Lily so tightly her knuckles were white, her entire body shaking. "Who is he?" James demanded. Her lips quivered. "Don't let him inside, James, please." But the man stepped across the threshold without waiting for permission. His shoes tapped softly against the wooden floor as he closed the door behind him with eerie calm. "We've wasted enough time playing hide and seek," he said, his voice low, almost conversational. "It's time we spoke face to face." James squared his shoulders, moving to block the bottom of the stairs. "You need to leave." The man tilted his head, his eyes narrowing slightly as though studying James. "Do you even know why she ran? Do you know the truth she's been keeping from you?" James's jaw tightened. "She told me enough." The man's laugh was soft, but it carried an edge. "No, she told you what she wanted you to hear. She always did. She couldn't trust you with the rest. And now here you are pretending you can protect her when you couldn't even see her slipping away under your roof." The words landed like blows, but James stood his ground. "I don't know who you are or what you think you know, but you're not going near my daughter or my wife." The man's eyes flicked past him toward the staircase. "Your wife, James. That's a convenient title for a man who was never truly present." "Stop it!" Lily's voice broke through, trembling but loud. She peered down from the stairs, tears streaking her face. "Leave us alone." The man's gaze softened when it landed on her, though that somehow made it worse. "You look just like her when she was young," he murmured. "Innocent, untouched by lies." James's chest tightened. "Stay away from her." But his wife suddenly cried out, her voice breaking, "Enough! Tell him the truth or I will." The man's smile faltered. For the first time, something flickered in his eyes. Anger, frustration, maybe even fear. James turned to his wife, his voice hoarse. "What truth? What is he talking about?" Her hands shook as she pushed Lily gently behind her. She took a shaky step forward, her eyes glistening with tears. "James, this man, he isn't just some stranger following me." She swallowed hard, her voice cracking. "He's someone from my past, someone I hoped you'd never have to meet." James's mind reeled. "From your past?" Her breath came out in short bursts, each word heavy with guilt. "Before you, before us, I made mistakes, James. Choices I thought I buried. And he," she pointed at the man, her hand trembling, "he's proof that the past never really disappears." The man's eyes darkened, his voice sharper now. "Don't paint me as a ghost, Anna. I'm more real than the life you tried to build with him." Lily's eyes darted between them, confusion etched across her face. "Mom, what does he mean?" Anna's tears spilled over. She sank onto the step, covering her face with her hands. It means I never told you everything. I never told you who I really was before I became your mother, before I became his wife." James's chest constricted. He stepped closer, his voice urgent. "Anna, what are you saying?" Her hands dropped from her face, revealing eyes bloodshot with pain. "I was never just running from fear. I was running from him, from a life I swore I'd left behind. And now, he's come to take it all back." The room fell into suffocating silence. Lily clung to her mother, trembling, while James's mind spun in chaos. Nothing made sense. The woman he thought he knew, the life he thought he understood, it all suddenly felt like fragile glass, ready to shatter with a single touch. The man stepped forward, his tone calm once more. "It doesn't matter how far you run, Anna. You belong to your past, and the sooner you accept that, the safer everyone will be." James positioned himself firmly in front of his family, his voice low but firm. "No, she doesn't belong to you. Not anymore. Not ever." The man's smile returned, slow and chilling. "We'll see." And then, without another word, he turned and walked out into the night, closing the door softly behind him. The silence he left behind was heavier than any noise could have been. Anna collapsed against the wall, sobbing, while Lily clutched her desperately, whispering, "Mom, please, don't cry, please." James stood motionless, his hands trembling at his sides, his mind racing with questions he wasn't sure he wanted answered. Who was that man? What did he mean about her past? And why, after all these years, had he come back now? He looked up at Anna, his voice breaking. "What aren't you telling me?" She lifted her tear-streaked face to his, her lips quivering. "The truth, James. The truth I should have told you years ago." But before she could continue, a single sheet of paper slipped through the gap under the door and landed on the floor. James bent down and picked it up with shaking hands. Written in sharp, deliberate handwriting were the words, "You can't hide her forever." James's heart sank as the weight of it settled over them. Whoever this man was, he wasn't done. And the truth Anna carried was only the beginning of a storm that threatened to rip them apart. The paper trembled in James's hand as he read the words over and over again. "You can't hide her forever." His throat went dry. He could feel Lily's gaze burning into him, searching for answers he didn't have. Anna sat slumped against the wall, her face pale, her breathing shallow. The entire room felt suffocated by those 7 words, as though the man hadn't truly left, but was still there, his shadow filling the cabin like a poison they couldn't escape. James placed the note on the table, his hands still shaking. "Anna," he said softly, but his voice carried an edge. "It's time. No more half-truths. No more silence. If you want me to protect you, to protect Lily, you need to tell me everything, right now." Anna's eyes darted toward the door, as though she feared the man would burst back inside at any second. She wiped her tears with trembling fingers, then reached for Lily, pulling her close. Her arms tightened around their daughter, like she was afraid someone might rip her away. "You won't look at me the same," she whispered. "Neither of you will." Lily's small voice broke through. The tension. "Mom, I don't care. I just want you to be safe." Anna closed her eyes, and her lips quivered as if Lily's innocence had cut through the wall she had built. Slowly, painfully, she began. "Before you, James, before any of this life, I was someone else. I grew up in a house where safety didn't exist. My parents were gone early, and I ended up in places no child should ever be. I trusted the wrong people. I thought they were family, but they weren't. They owned me." James's heart sank, and his stomach churned as he realized where her story was going. "I was young, barely older than Lily is now when I met him," she continued, her voice faltering. "The man at the door, his name is Daniel. He wasn't always the monster you saw. At first, he pretended to be my savior. He told me he'd protect me, give me a future. But protection came with a cost, and soon I wasn't free. Every decision, every step, I owed him. I belonged to him in ways I can't even explain." Lily's arms wrapped tighter around her mother. "Mom, no." Anna kissed the top of her daughter's head, tears streaming down her face. "I escaped him, James. Years ago, I cut ties, I changed my name, I tried to build a new life. That's when I met you, and for the first time, I felt like I could breathe. I thought I'd left Daniel behind forever." James felt his jaw clench, his chest heavy with both rage and sorrow. "Why didn't you tell me? Why keep this hidden all these years?" Her gaze broke, shame clouding her eyes. "Because I was terrified. What if you couldn't accept me? What if knowing the truth ruined everything we had? I wanted to be the woman you thought I was, not the broken girl Daniel left behind. And for a while, I believed I could be. Until the letters started. Until the calls came. Until I knew he had found me again." The room spun for James. He wanted to scream at her for keeping this from him, for putting their daughter in danger. But when he looked at her, fragile, trembling, terrified, he saw not betrayal, but a woman who had been carrying unbearable weight alone for years. His anger melted into something else, regret. Lily looked between them, confusion clouding her young face. "So he wants you back?" Anna's voice cracked. Yes, he thinks I still belong to him. And when he said, "I couldn't hide you forever," her eyes locked on Lily and her lips trembled. He wasn't talking about me, he was talking about you. The air seemed to collapse around them. James's body stiffened and every nerve screamed at him to protect his daughter. "What does he want with Lily?" he demanded, his voice rising. Anna's tears came harder. "He sees her as leverage. If he can't pull me back into his world, he'll use her to force me. He'll try to make me believe the only way to keep her safe is by giving myself up." James's fists clenched at his sides. He had never felt such a mix of fury and helplessness. "Over my dead body?" Anna looked at him with desperate eyes. "You don't understand, James. He doesn't stop. He doesn't just threaten. He follows through. He knows how to break people. He knows how to make you believe there's no way out." But James shook his head, his voice steel. "Then he doesn't know me." For a moment, silence stretched between them, broken only by Lily's quiet sobs. Then James moved toward the window, staring out at the darkness beyond the trees. The lake rippled faintly in the moonlight, the night air thick with tension. Somewhere out there, Daniel lingered, watching, waiting. James turned back, determination burning in his eyes. "We're not running anymore. He's fed on your fear long enough. It ends here," Anna flinched. "James, you don't know what you're saying." "Yes, I do," James snapped, his voice sharp, but not cruel. "I've been blind for too long. I thought money and success were the only battles worth fighting. But this is real. He wants to take my family, and I won't let him." Lily sniffled, her voice trembling. "Dad, what if he hurts you?" James knelt beside her, cupping her face gently. "Then I'll still fight, because no one gets to take away the two people I love most in this world." Anna's sobs quieted as she watched him. For the first time, there was something new in her gaze, not just fear, but a flicker of hope. Yet beneath that hope was still the weight of dread, because she knew Daniel wasn't a man who gave up easily. Suddenly, a thud echoed against the window. Lily screamed, clinging to her mother. James rushed forward, his heart hammering, only to find a stone lying on the floor. Glass cracked. Wrapped around the stone was another note. He snatched it quickly, tearing it open with shaking hands. "You can choose to fight me, James, but in the end, she will choose me, because I am the only one who knows who she really is." Anna gasped, her face draining of color. James turned to her, confusion and anger burning in his voice. "What does that mean? What else aren't you telling me?" Anna's lips trembled, her eyes glistening. "There's more, so much more. And if he exposes it, it won't just destroy me. It could destroy all of us." James stared at her, his chest tightening as he realized the truth he thought he'd finally uncovered was only the surface. The real storm, the one Anna had been running from her entire life, was only beginning to break, and Daniel wasn't going to stop until every buried secret came to light. James's hand trembled as he gripped the note. The words dug into him like claws. "She will choose me, because I am the only one who knows who she really is." His heart pounded, his chest tightening as he turned toward Anna. "What else is there?" His voice cracked, filled with desperation. "What more could he possibly know about you that I don't?" Anna's eyes glistened with tears as she pulled Lily closer. "James, he isn't just from my past. He is my past. Before you, before Lily, I had another life. And in that life..." She swallowed hard, her voice trembling. "I had another child." The room fell into stunned silence. James's mouth went dry, his body stiffening as though the floor had been ripped out from beneath him. Lily's eyes widened, confusion clouding her face. "You had a child," James whispered, struggling to process. Anna nodded slowly, shame burning in her gaze. "A boy. His name was Matthew. I was only 17. Daniel convinced me that he would give us a future, that we'd be safe." But when I realized what kind of man he truly was, it was too late. He kept Matthew. He told me I wasn't fit to be a mother, that I had no right to raise him. And when I finally ran, I had to leave Matthew behind. It destroyed me, James. Every day since, it has destroyed me. Lily gasped, clutching her mother's arm. Mum, you mean I have a brother? Anna's tears fell harder as she nodded. Yes, sweetheart, you do. James's chest ached. Suddenly, the man's words made sense. You can't hide her forever. He wasn't just after Anna. He was after Lily because she was tied to Matthew, because Anna's secret past bound them all together. Anna continued, her voice breaking. Daniel raised Matthew to believe I abandoned him, that I never loved him. And now Matthew is grown. He's with Daniel, and he hates me. The weight of the revelation crushed the room into silence. James staggered back, the note slipping from his hands. All this time, Anna had been running not just from Daniel, but from her own son. Suddenly a shadow appeared outside the broken window. This time, it wasn't Daniel. It was a younger figure, broad-shouldered, his eyes piercing with the same shade of blue as Anna's. He stepped inside through the shattered glass, his voice cold but steady. Hello, Mother. Anna's breath hitched. Her knees nearly gave way as she whispered, Matthew? The man, stood tall, his expression a mixture of pain and anger. All these years, you left me, and now you think you can hide with your new family. Lily clung tighter to her mother, her wide eyes filling with tears. James stepped forward protectively. If you've come to hurt them, you'll have to go through me. Matthew's gaze flicked to James, studying him with a cold detachment. You're the man she replaced me with. The man who got the life I never had. Anna reached out, her voice trembling. Matthew, no, you were never replaced. I never stopped loving you. I left to protect you. Matthew's jaw clenched. Protect me or protect yourself? Before Anna could answer, the cabin door swung open again. Daniel stepped inside, his expression calm, almost satisfied. You see, he said smoothly, placing a hand on Matthew's shoulder. She chose them, not you. She'll always choose them, because that's who she is. Anna's voice broke into a cry. No, don't listen to him. Matthew, he twisted everything. He made me believe I had no choice. I ran so I could survive, so that one day I could come back for you. But he never let me. Matthew's face flickered with conflict. For the first time, his anger faltered. James stepped closer, his voice steady, his tone firm. Son, he stopped, then corrected himself. Matthew, I can't pretend to know your pain. I can't imagine what it felt like to grow up believing you were abandoned. But look at her. He gestured toward Anna, whose tears streamed freely. She's not perfect. She made mistakes. She should have told us sooner, but she never stopped loving you. I can see it in her eyes right now. Matthew's eyes shifted to his mother, who was trembling, her hands reaching toward him. Daniel's grip tightened on his shoulder, his voice low and venomous. Don't believe them. She's lying. She always lies. But Lily's small voice suddenly cut through the tension. She stepped forward, tears streaming down her cheeks. If she didn't love you, why does she cry every time she says your name? If she didn't love you, why did she keep your picture in her drawer all these years? She told me once. She said she lost something before me, and she never healed. That was you, wasn't it? Matthew froze, his eyes darting between Anna, James, and Lily. His chest rose and fell heavily. For the first time, Daniel's hold seemed weaker. Anna sobbed, her voice raw. Matthew, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I can't change the past, but I want to make things right. Please, give me a chance to love you again. For a long moment, Matthew stood there silent, his emotions warring inside him. Then, slowly, he shrugged off Daniel's hand. Daniel's calm mask cracked, fury flashing across his face. You ungrateful boy, Daniel hissed. After everything I gave you... But Matthew turned, his voice hard. You didn't give me anything. You stole my life. Daniel's face darkened, his fists clenched, but James stepped forward, his voice commanding. "It's over, Daniel. You can't control them anymore. You can't own people's lives." Daniel's eyes narrowed, but when he saw Matthew step closer to Anna, his smirk faltered. He realized his grip on the past was slipping. Without another word, he turned sharply and walked out into the night, his shadow disappearing into the darkness. The cabin fell into silence once more, broken only by Anna's sobs as she finally wrapped her arms around Matthew. He stiffened at first, but then, slowly, his body softened, his head resting against her shoulder. Lily joined them, her small arms encircling them both. James stood back, his eyes glistening, his chest tight. For the first time, he saw not just a broken family, but a family that had been torn apart and was beginning, painfully, to stitch itself back together. Matthew's voice was quiet, almost broken. "I don't know if I can forgive you, not yet." Anna kissed his forehead through her tears. "I don't expect you to. I just hope one day you'll let me try." James placed a hand on Matthew's shoulder, steady and firm. "You don't have to go through this alone anymore. None of us do." For the first time in years, there was no running, no hiding, just truth, raw, painful, but healing. As the rain eased outside and the lake glistened under the moonlight, Anna whispered almost to herself, "Maybe we can finally breathe again." Moral lesson: secrets may protect us for a time, but in the end they chain us to fear. True healing begins when truth is spoken, no matter how painful. Families are not built on perfection, but on forgiveness, patience, and the courage to face the past together.